Welcome back to my channel. My name is Cece. I am an artist and graphic designer based in New York City, and I love to talk about all things sex and sexuality. And I also run my own grassroots organization called Asians for Sex Positivity. Today we're going to be talking about pornography. I feel like out of all the topics about sex and sexuality, this is one that I can talk about for hours and hours and hours, but I'm going to try and keep this short to under 20 minutes and just kind of talk about my general thoughts about porn, talk about the porn industry, ethical porn, when I first started watching porn, like sex education in relation to porn and all of that fun stuff. But before we start, why am I qualified to talk about pornography? Well, I've actually been watching porn since I was like 10 years old, so I have many years of experience to draw from. Porn was literally what introduced me to sex. It showed me how sex worked, it showed me what pleasure looked like, and it was kind of my gay awakening because immediately I was drawn to lesbian sex. I know it's also normal for straight women to watch lesbian sex, but like lesbian porn was like the only thing that I grew up watching, and so I was like, am I gay? Am I a little... I specifically remember like being under the covers of my bed and like watching porn on my iPad. I don't know why I didn't watch it on my phone, but yeah. And I feel like a lot of people have a similar experience where they found out about sex through porn. Like that's how they kind of got their sex ed, unfortunately, which I'm going to go deep into in a second. But yeah, that's number one. Number two, this is a little bit of a shameless self-promotion, but I was actually on a docu-series called Planet Sex with Cara Delevingne. I was on the episode about pornography. I'm only in it for like a couple of seconds, but I talked about my experience watching porn at a very young age. It's on Hulu. I highly recommend it. I think it's a good introduction to what ethical porn looks like, and then the entire series itself is also a good introduction to exploring human sexuality and diverse sexualities and all of that stuff. But essentially in that episode, it was me along with two other college students, as well as a sex educator named Justine Angfonte, and of course with Cara herself. We all talked about our experiences growing up watching porn at a young age and how that impacted our view of ourselves, our body, and our views on sex. So I literally talked about porn with Cara Delevingne. That is the reason why I'm qualified to talk about this. Like, she knows nothing about me except for my porn habits. And then number three, I just wanted to note that I'm an artist who makes erotic art. So because of that, I think I have an interesting perspective on, the differences between porn, art, eroticism. This is something that I think about constantly. Because of that, I think I also have a deep appreciation for female producers in the porn industry, artists who are making erotic art, erotica, who are kind of pushing the boundaries between pornography and art. So yeah, that's just a general introduction of my experience with porn, but honestly I feel like anyone can talk about their opinions on pornography because we've all had some sort of experience with it, whether that was when we were really young or now as an adult. So when I introduce myself as a sex positive person, honestly one of the most common questions that I get asked is, if you're sex positive, are you pro porn or anti porn? Obviously it's really hard to give just a simple one sentence answer because it's just so much more nuanced than that. But usually what I say, if I want to keep it succinct, is I am anti-mainstream porn, but I am pro-ethical porn. And let's talk about the differences between the two. Let's talk about mainstream porn first, because I feel like that is what most of us have the most experience and knowledge about. So what is mainstream porn? Mainstream porn is kind of the most popular porn that you see out there. It is the first thing that probably pops up on Google when you search up pornography. The big tube sites like Pornhub is an example of mainstream porn. The problem with mainstream porn is that it is made for men by men, so it's become very misogynistic, very fetishizing, never ever showing conversations about consent, and just not a good depiction or accurate depiction of what sex looks like. But here's where it gets a little bit more complicated in my opinion. Pornography as a product to me itself is neutral. If we think about it, pornography is media that is intended for sexual arousal. It can be video format, it can be text, it can be audio. I think that's pretty simple to understand, but because of how our society operates, I think pornography has been given this negative connotation. When we talk about porn, we kind of immediately think about porn addictions. We think about women being degraded in porn. We think about sex workers taken advantage of. We think about kids having access to porn at a very young age. Here's a simple truth. If you don't teach sex ed, porn will do that for you. At the end of the day, porn is an entertainment industry. It is not an education industry, but because of the lack of sex education that we receive at school and also at home, obviously it makes sense that kids are turning to porn to find out what 69 is, to find out how sex works. And then because of that, we're putting a lot of shame on porn itself and people who watch porn, people who, are associated with the porn industry, because we expect it to be this accurate, real life depiction of what sex is. When in reality, porn is just to entertain. It is not meant to be real, but we need to be educated on that first. If sex ed in the United States was better, I don't think we'd have the same relationship to pornography as we do now. I also think it's important to teach porn literacy in schools, and this is a term that I honestly did not actually know about until I talked to Justine Angfonte in that Planet Sex episode. Porn literacy is essentially aimed to help people think critically about their porn consumption, about how porn is made, and how to combat a lot of the negative messagings that comes with porn. I'm going to keep referring back to that Planet Sex episode because I think there are a lot of good points in it, but in that episode there were a lot of things that I talked about personally that did not end up making the final cut. Like, I talked about a lot of the fetishization that happens in pornography, especially as Asian women, but the thing that I talked about that did end up in the final cut is how porn really impacted my view of my own body and my body image. Through watching porn, I expected my body to look a certain way. I thought I needed to be completely hairless, be completely shaved everywhere. I thought my vulva was supposed to look a certain way. I wanted to have bigger tits because of porn, and all of this messaging really impacted me at a young age, and I wish I had educators and adults tell me that this is not a real representation of what bodies look like, and this is not a real representation of what sex and intimacy looks like. I think this is a good segue into ethical porn. So I do say that I am pro ethical porn. I think ethical porn is sex positive, whereas mainstream porn is sex negative. So what is ethical porn? I think I'm learning recently that a lot of women know what ethical porn is, but a lot of men don't know what ethical porn is. So ethical porn is also known as feminist porn. It is porn made by women for women, but I also recommend men to watch ethical porn. Essentially, it's porn produced ethically. All of the performers and crew are paid fairly. The environment is safe. The performers and the producers always talk about consent, and usually ethical porn is not free. So those are some of the main differences between ethical and mainstream porn. Also, an easy way to tell whether or not a site makes ethical porn. Usually, ethical production sites will include a statement of values, a statement of beliefs. Also, you should be able to know who is behind the production, like the name of the producer, the name of the director, the name of the production company, the name of the performers, etc. In that Planet Sex episodes, they follow Erica Lust, who is a huge producer in the ethical porn industry, and they follow her journey of producing one porn scene, and it was really, really interesting and eye-opening for me. The one thing that stuck out to me most was in that episode, they showed Erica about to film this huge, really gorgeous orgy scene, but she first, before filming, sits with all of her performers. I think there were around 9 to 10 performers in this scene, so a lot of people were involved. They were all sitting down in a circle, kind of with their robes on, ready to shoot. But before they started shooting, they talk about consent and what things they're okay with and what things they're not okay with as performers. And this is something that Erica does and prioritizes before shooting every single scene. I remember one of the performers said that she was more of a voyeur, so she just wanted to sit and masturbate and watch everyone else and didn't want to be touched. Someone Someone also said that I liked my balls being played with, that makes me come faster. Someone else said, I'm down for anything except for anal. So that conversation really was honestly kind of inspiring to me, and was like, wow, this is really a safe space and so different from, you know, the mainstream porn that people are watching. Because of the lack of sex education that we receive, you know, I think it's very common for us to see things on porn and think that it's just normal to do that in your everyday sex life. I've heard stories of young men and teenage boys going into sex thinking that it's completely fine to choke someone, to slap someone because of what they see on porn, and not asking for consent before they do that. They just think that, oh, if they do it on porn, then this should be, you know, what people do all the time during sex. When in fact, it definitely should not be something that we are doing all the time in sex. In fact, we should always be asking for consent beforehand. And I think mainstream porn is part of the reason why a lot of people think that consent is unsexy or it's awkward to ask for consent, because they don't show that in porn, when in reality, consent is necessary. It's not that it's just sexy, it's necessary and required. This last part I'm really excited about. I wanted to give you some recommendations for ethical porn sites. I wanted to specifically talk about 2 sites that I personally use. I think one staple of mine is obviously Bellesa. They also sell really amazing sex toys. This is not sponsored at all. I love Bellesa so much. They make porn for women by women. I do think they have a very small selection of free porn if you want to check it out, but they also have a monthly and yearly subscription that I highly recommend. And then more recently, I've been getting into audio erotica. It's kind of been my new obsession and completely changing my masturbation and porn game personally. I'm also a huge auditory person when it comes to sex. Like, I love dirty talk, I love moaning, I love hearing someone else moan, like that definitely turns me on. And so discovering audio erotica has been a huge game changer. In terms of the audio erotica world, I know there are 2 sites. There's Dipsy and there is Quinn. I started using Quinn and I got a subscription and I am absolutely loving it. They just did a collab with Kate, who played Shane in The L Word, and the sapphic community has just been completely shaking over that collaboration. It's just so good. But I've really fallen in love with one of their sapphic creators, and it's really fulfilling so many of my fantasies, and just such a great ethical porn site. And honestly, I've been recommending it to all of my friends. I've been like, hey, you should check out audio erotica. It is so freaking good, and not gonna lie, it's been giving me some of my best orgasms ever. So again, this is not sponsored. These are just some of my personal recommendations, but go download Quinn. It is so amazing and probably going to change your life too. And I'll also include some other ethical porn sites on the screen here that you can check out if you are looking for other options. And feel free to follow us at Asians for Sex Positivity. We always post a lot about ethical porn, recommendations, resources, all of that jazz. And make sure to also go follow Justine Ang Fonte if you want to learn more about her sex education work that she does, and also her porn literacy work. She is a Filipina sex educator based in New York, and we've honestly gotten so much closer since filming that Planet Sex episode, and she continues to inspire me so much. I highly recommend following her, especially if you're someone interested in sexuality, sex ed, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that leads me to the end of this video. All of the things that I mentioned will be linked in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, or if there's something that you want me to go further into, please let me know as well. Like, I have so many hot takes on porn addiction, on mainstream porn, on ethical porn too. Yeah, so if there's anything that you want me to go deeper into, please let me know, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.